The first mistake we made was assuming humans were logical, the second mistake was believing their weapons defined their danger, the third mistake? Well, that one still burning a crater where our command station used to be. My name is Vorthka, Senior Tactical Analyst for the Hegemony's 4th Expansion Fleet. Or rather, I was Senior Tactical Analyst. Hard to maintain a job when your entire fleet gets obliterated by a single human female dragging what their species charmingly calls a city killer behind her like a stubborn pet, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning. Back when we still thought this would be easy, the planet designation was Terra 77 Alpha. Nothing special about it, really. Standard oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere, decent mineral deposits, and a population of roughly 8 billion bipedal mammals who had barely figured out faster-than-light communication. Their most advanced warships couldn't even break the light barrier without external assistance. Frankly, we were being generous calling it an invasion rather than pest control. Fleet Commander Zex Prime had been particularly smug during the briefing. Primitive kinetic weapons, he'd said, mandibles clicking with amusement. Chemical propellants and metal projectiles. How quaint. Our intelligence reports painted a picture of a species that solved problems by throwing increasingly larger explosions at them. Crude, yes, but predictable. We had energy shields that could deflect their primitive missiles, armor that could withstand their chemical weapons, and firepower that could glass their cities from orbit. What we didn't account for was their complete and utter disregard for common sense. The first sign something was wrong came when our forward scouts reported anomalous readings from the human settlement of New Geneva. Instead of the expected military buildup, they found nothing. Empty streets, abandoned vehicles, and a single human female sitting on what appeared to be a park bench, reading something called a magazine and occasionally sipping from a small container. Probably a refugee, scout leader Crix had reported. The others must have fled when they detected our approach. How wrong we were. The woman's name, we later learned, was Maya Castellanos. 32 years old, former nuclear engineer turned freelance problem solver. The humans have this delightful euphemism for people who handle situations too dangerous or morally questionable for their regular military. They call them contractors. Maya was definitely a contractor. When our dropships descended to establish a forward operating base, she was still there, still reading her magazine. Our landing created enough dust and debris to level half the street, but she just brushed off her shoulder and looked up at our lead transport with the expression of someone mildly inconvenienced by a neighbor's loud music. That should have been our first warning. Commander Thrak 9 emerged from the dropship, all 4 arms spread wide in what our cultural briefings assured us was an intimidating gesture. His translation device crackled to life as he addressed the lone human. Primitive being, his voice boomed across the empty plaza, you will surrender this territory in the name of the hegemony. Resistance will result in your immediate termination. Maya closed her magazine, set down her drink, and stood up with the casual grace of someone who had done this before. Many times before, judging by the complete lack of fear in her expression. Yeah, about that, she said, her voice carrying clearly across the distance. I'm going to have to decline your generous offer. You see, this is my neighborhood, and I'm really quite fond of it. Thrak 9's translator struggled with the human concept of sarcasm. The mechanical voice rendered her response as negative acknowledgement of territorial transfer. Emotional attachment to geographical location cited as reasoning. Even filtered through translation software, the dismissive tone was unmistakable. You dare mock the hegemony? Thrak 9 bellowed, his chitinous plates flaring in anger. I have conquered 17 worlds. My fleet carries enough firepower to crack this pathetic planet's crust. Maya nodded thoughtfully, as if considering his words. 17 worlds, huh? That's impressive. Really. But here's the thing about humans, Commander, we're not particularly good at surrendering. Call it a character flaw. She reached behind the bench and began dragging something into view. At first, I thought it might be luggage. The object was roughly cylindrical, about the size of a small transport, and appeared to be made from salvaged metal plates welded together with what could charitably be called enthusiasm. then I noticed the radiation warnings, and the timer, and the cheerfully hand-painted message reading, "With love from Earth," in multiple languages, including, disturbingly, our own. Is that? Thrak 9's voice cracked slightly. Is that a nuclear device? Maya glanced down at her improvised doomsday weapon as if she'd forgotten it was there. Oh, this old thing? Yeah, I cobbled it together from some decommissioned warheads and a few household items. Nothing fancy, mind you. Just your standard city buster with a few personal modifications. She patted the device affectionately, like a human might pet their domestic animals. I call her Sunshine. She's got about a 50 kiloton yield and a really, really short temper. The silence that followed was broken only by the gentle clicking of Sunshine's timer, counting down from what appeared to be 47 minutes and 18 seconds. 17 seconds. 16 seconds. You're bluffing, Thrak 9 said, but his voice lacked conviction. No rational being would detonate a nuclear weapon in their own settlement. Maya's smile could have melted hull plating. Commander, I think you've fundamentally misunderstood something about humans. We're not rational beings. We're problem solvers. And right now, you're my problem. She began walking toward our position, dragging Sunshine behind her. The improvised weapon left deep furrows in the pavement, its wheels squealing in protest. The timer continued its relentless countdown, 46 minutes, 12 seconds. Stop right there. Thrak 9 ordered, his weapon trained on the approaching human. Take one more step and I'll vaporize you where you stand. Maya paused, tilted her head, and gave him the most genuinely puzzled expression I've ever seen on a sentient being's face. Okay, but you do realize that won't stop the bomb, right? I mean, it's not like it's connected to my heartbeat or anything. Though, now that I think about it, that would have been a nice touch. Maybe next time. The timer read 45 minutes, 38 seconds. Besides, Maya continued, resuming her casual stroll, killing an unarmed civilian? What would your superiors think? I'm not carrying any weapons, after all. Thrak 9's translator clearly didn't know how to handle the logical disconnect between unarmed and dragging a nuclear weapon. Neither did we. 43 minutes, 14 seconds. That's when Fleet Commander Zex Prime decided to personally handle the situation. His voice crackled through our communication array with all the authority of someone who had never met a human before. Stand down, Thrak 9. I'll deal with this primitive myself. Maya had stopped about 50 meters from our perimeter, apparently to retie her shoe. Because of course, when facing an alien invasion fleet, proper footwear was a priority. The nuclear device sat patiently beside her, its timer cheerfully announcing 42 minutes, 51 seconds remaining until everyone's very bad day. Zex Prime's command shuttle descended with the dramatic flair our species was known for. Energy dischargers glowing, hull gleaming with polished armor plating, and enough firepower to level a small city. It was a display designed to inspire awe and terror in primitive species. Maya looked up from her shoelace, shielded her eyes from the shuttle's landing lights, and had the audacity to wave. You must be management, she called out as Zex Prime emerged from his shuttle. I was wondering when someone with actual decision-making authority would show up. Our fleet commander was an impressive sight. 3 meters tall, 6 arms, natural armor plating that could deflect energy weapons, and a voice that could shatter glass when he was annoyed. Right now, he was very annoyed. Human female, he began, his translator struggling with the condescension in his tone, you will immediately disable that device and surrender yourself to hegemony forces. Your compliance will result in a quick termination rather than prolonged suffering. Maya stood up, brushing dust from her pants with the casual air of someone discussing weekend plans. Oh, that's very generous of you. Really? But I'm afraid I can't do that. She gestured toward Sunshine with obvious pride. You see, this beautiful girl here isn't really designed to be turned off. Think of her more as an enthusiastic commitment to a single course of action. 41 minutes, 18 seconds. What do you want? Zex Prime demanded. Credits? Territory? Safe passage off-world? Maya laughed, and the sound sent chills through our entire landing party. It wasn't hysterical or frightened. It was genuinely amused, as if she found our entire invasion attempt entertaining. Commander, you're still not getting it. I don't want anything from you. I want you gone. Off my world, out of my solar system, and preferably never coming back. She started walking again, sunshine trailing behind her like an overly enthusiastic pet. Here's the thing about humans that your intelligence reports probably missed. We're not particularly concerned with survival odds. We're much more interested in making sure the other guy has worse odds than we do. 39 minutes, 42 seconds. You're insane, Thrak 9 whispered, his weapon still trained on Maya despite the obvious futility of the gesture. Probably, Maya agreed cheerfully. Occupational hazard. But here's what's going to happen. In about 38 minutes, Sunshine here is going to have a very brief but very energetic moment. The blast radius will take out your entire ground force, most of this city, and probably crack the planetary crust for about 50 kilometers in every direction. She paused her casual stroll to check something on her wrist device. Of course, your ships in orbit will survive. But you'll have to explain to your superiors why a single human with a homemade nuclear device managed to wipe out the 4th Expansion Fleet's entire ground operation. Zex Prime's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. You'll die too, primitive. Your own weapon will destroy you. Maya's smile could have powered a small city. Commander, that's the beautiful thing about humans. We're really, really good at spite. Sometimes we're so good at it that we'll blow ourselves up just to make sure you don't get what you want. 37 minutes, 15 seconds. This is madness, Scout Leader Crix transmitted on our private channel. No rational species would sacrifice themselves to deny territory to an occupying force. That's when it hit me. The fundamental error in all our calculations, all our strategic planning, all our intelligence assessments. We had been analyzing humans as if they were rational actors operating under predictable behavioral parameters. They weren't. Maya had stopped again, this time to examine something on Sunshine's casing. She made a small adjustment with what appeared to be a common hand tool, then patted the device affectionately. Just making sure you're running smoothly, girl, she murmured to the nuclear weapon. We want to make a good impression on our guests. What are you doing? Zex Prime demanded. Oh, just a minor calibration. I noticed the yield calculator was running a bit conservative. Should be closer to 75 kilotons now. Maybe 80, if the weather conditions are right. 35 minutes, 28 seconds. That's when our long-range scanners detected the incoming signatures. Dozens of them, approaching from multiple vectors at sublight speed. Human vessels, moving with the desperate urgency of a species that had just learned their homeworld was under attack. Commander, Communications Officer Vex Delta reported, his voice tight with barely controlled panic, we're detecting massive human fleet movements throughout the system. Military vessels, civilian transports, even cargo haulers. They're all armed and heading directly for us. Maya looked up at the sky as if she could see the approaching armada. Oh good, the cavalry's arrived. Though honestly, I was hoping to handle this myself. More personal that way. Zex Prime's attention was divided between the timer on Sunshine, now showing 34 minutes and 12 seconds, and the tactical display showing human vessels converging on our position from every direction. This is impossible, he muttered. Our intelligence indicated minimal military capability. Primitive weapon systems. No unified command structure. Yeah, about that, Maya said, settling down cross-legged beside her nuclear device like she was having a picnic. Humans have this weird quirk. We're not very good at working together under normal circumstances. We argue about everything. Politics, religion, what to have for lunch. But you know what really brings us together? She gestured broadly at the alien fleet overhead. External threats. Nothing quite unifies the human species like someone else trying to tell us what to do with our planet. 32 minutes, 47 seconds. The first wave of human fighters screamed overhead, their primitive chemical drives leaving vapor trails across the sky. They were followed by larger vessels, some clearly military, others obviously converted civilian craft bristling with improvised weapons. "Those are mining charges," one of our weapons analysts reported with disbelief. "They've strapped industrial mining equipment to cargo haulers and turned them into kinetic bombardment platforms." "Resourceful little primates," Maya observed with obvious pride. "Give a human some spare parts and a pressing deadline, and they'll figure out 17 different ways to kill you with office supplies." Our orbital platforms began reporting contact with human vessels. The engagement reports were confusing. The humans weren't following conventional tactical doctrine. They weren't trying to win through superior firepower or advanced technology. They were simply throwing everything they had at us with the apparent goal of causing as much damage as possible before being destroyed. That IT was working. "Commander," Tactical Officer Rick 7 reported, "we're losing ships. The human vessels are ramming our destroyers. They're actually ramming them. On purpose." 30 minutes, 18 seconds, Maya had produced a small container from her backpack and was eating what appeared to be a processed food item while watching the battle overhead. "Oh, that'll be Captain Torres in the cargo hauler Stubborn Mule. She's got a thing about personal space. Fair warning, she's probably loaded that ship with about 6 months' worth of industrial explosives." As if summoned by her words, a brilliant flash lit the sky as one of our destroyer-class vessels simply ceased to exist, replaced by an expanding ball of superheated plasma. "There she goes," Maya said with satisfaction. Torres always did like to make an entrance. And an exit, apparently. Fleet Commander Zex Prime was frantically issuing orders, trying to coordinate a withdrawal while under attack from what appeared to be every human vessel in the system. Our supposedly superior technology was being overwhelmed by sheer, bloody-minded determination and a complete disregard for acceptable loss ratios. "Why?" he finally asked, turning to Maya with something approaching desperation. "Why are you doing this? You could negotiate. Find a compromise. Your species doesn't have to die fighting a war you cannot win." Maya finished her meal, carefully disposed of the container in a nearby waste receptacle, and looked up at the fleet commander with an expression of genuine puzzlement. "Commander, I think you're still missing the point. This isn't about winning or losing. This isn't about survival or rational self-interest. This is about the principle of the thing." 27 minutes, 34 seconds. "You came to our world uninvited. You pointed weapons at our cities. You demanded our surrender without even asking nicely first. That's just rude." She stood up, brushed off her pants again, and placed one hand on Sunshine's casing like she was petting a favored pet. "So now we're going to teach you some manners. The lesson plan is pretty simple. First, you leave. Second, you don't come back. Third, you tell all your friends that humans are way more trouble than we're worth." The sky above was filled with fire and debris as human vessels continued their suicidal attacks on our fleet. Ship after ship disappeared from our tactical displays, replaced by expanding clouds of wreckage and radiation. "And if you don't learn the lesson the first time," Maya continued with a smile that would have been perfectly at home on an apex predator's face, "well, we've got about 8 billion more teachers where I came from, and most of them are even less patient than I am." 25 minutes, 12 seconds. That's when Fleet Commander Zex Prime finally understood what we were really facing, not a primitive species to be conquered, not a military force to be defeated, but an entire world of beings so fundamentally unreasonable, so utterly committed to their own bloody-minded independence, that they would cheerfully drag their enemies into mutual annihilation rather than submit. "Signal the fleet," he ordered quietly. "Full withdrawal. Now." Maya waved goodbye as our shuttles lifted off, leaving her alone in the empty plaza with her improvised nuclear weapon and its steadily counting timer. Give my regards to your superiors, she called out. And remember, Earth is always open for tourism. We just don't much care for uninvited military visits. As our transport climbed toward the safety of orbit, I caught one last glimpse of Maya Castellanos through the rear viewport. She was sitting on her bench again, reading her magazine, while Sunshine sat patiently beside her like a loyal pet. The timer showed 23 minutes, 47 seconds. We never found out if she actually let it detonate, or if the whole thing was an elaborate bluff. Frankly, with humans, I'm not sure it matters. The lesson was learned either way.